He's Pablo Torre, and he is a contributor to Pardon the Interruption. Of course, Pablo Torre Finds Out, Meadowlark Media podcast. He took time out from Bill Belichick to spend a little time with the NFL. And now I want you to dumb this down, though, Pablo, okay? And just so our audience knows exactly what the NFL, are they guilty of or being accused of?
They are being accused of quite a bit. They are guilty, and that is, I'll use that word sort of conversationally here.
Okay.
They were found by the arbitrator to have attempted to collude with the 32 NFL teams. We have extensive documentation now. By the way, hello, thank you for having me. This is a 61-page document that has been suppressed by both the league, the owners, and the union, in which there's a treasure trove, Dan, and there's just one bit of vocabulary that I want to do at the top, which is expedited discovery. What does this mean? It means that you get all of the texts, the emails, the documents, the private messages, the slideshows, all of the secret stuff from owners, players, agents, executives. It's the treasure trove. And so the question of there is a treasure trove, there's a finding that the NFL encouraged the owners to collude to prevent the next Deshaun Watson contract. You'll recall that was fully guaranteed, unprecedented. They wanted to stop Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray. That same summer of 2022, they wanted to stop that from happening. So into all of this, I guess I walk in and I'm like, oh man, I think I can get this document. And I now have a sense of why the union and the league, neither side, wanted this out there. And that was the question. Why haven't we heard about this? Well, there's a lot deeper here that explains that too.
Okay, but do you need to have a slideshow, send out a memo to not be stupid like the Cleveland Browns were with Deshaun Watson?
Well, it's a great question. And so despite that, despite what seems obvious, Roger Goodell, in repeated emails with Jeff Pash as general counsel, had this exact conversation. We need to make sure that they don't do this. And so there's this thing called the NFL Management Council, Dan, and this is a shadowy entity that I didn't understand before I reported this story. But at the league annual meetings, all right, I'll set the scene. It's Palm Beach. It's a big conference room. Into this walk the 32 owners and the representatives. At the front of the room are the head and the executives in charge of the NFLMC. And there's a slideshow presentation. And in the slides, there is written off to the side for the presenters to see the results of these emails that Roger Goodell had written back and forth with Jeff Pash, in which they wanted to spare no ambiguity as to the fact that this would be a problem if anybody else did this. So it's a great question. A horrible contract. We laughed at it at the time. And yet, it's so symptomatic of the level of control and cohesion when it comes to why they didn't want to even allow the possibility that someone would be dumb enough to do this again.
Did teams collude, or was the NFL asking them to collude?
That is the key distinction that the arbitrator drew, is that the NFL encouraged them to do it. Here are the documents, here are the emails, but they didn't have admissions on the record, and certainly they had denials from the 8 NFL owners that they had witness testimony from, that they, again, spoiler alert, that they did not sign another Deshaun Watson-style contract, right? There were never guarantees like that again. But the arbitrator could not prove that that was because the NFL had encouraged them. What we did see, though, in these documents, it's just over and over again, private text messages between the owner of the Cardinals and the owner of the Chargers, in which they are celebrating how Kyler Murray's contract was going to be not guaranteed. And how, in fact, as Michael Bidwill, the owner of the Cardinals, says, and I'll just quote this, he gets a text message from Dean Spanos. Dean Spanos says, "Congratulations on signing Murray." Michael Bidwill says, "Thanks, Dino. These QB deals are expensive, but we limited the fully guaranteed money." I have some pretty good language. "Thankfully, you have a QB that's worth paying." Spanos says, in response, "Your deal helps us for our quarterback next year." And so, look, everybody, Dan, the thing I'm struck by, right, as you go through all of this, and there are so many examples like this. You have the Broncos owners deliberating internally, their internal messages in which they are saying, we're not going to give Russell Wilson the guaranteed deal that he wants. Of course we're not, even though he's demanding it. We have Lamar Jackson, the backstory of that deal, right? We have texts from Lamar, messages saying to the Ravens, I want a fully guaranteed deal in all caps. We now know, by the way, that thanks to this document, after they, of course, non-exclusively franchise tagged him, that was their, solution, that he got 0 offers from other teams. 0. The MVP, 0. And so the question you ask yourself is, okay, why? Was any of the encouragement in that NFL MC meeting responsible for it? The arbitrator could not certainly publicly, but did not privately feel comfortable ruling it was because of the league's guidance. And so many things can be true.
Why would the Players Association be in cahoots with this, since they would want their players to be paid as much as possible?
That's the best question, right? So the NFLPA, sources at the union have always, they've dreamed of this, right? Because in this document, it's not merely the Mike Florios of the world who are yelling about this and saying, this is how they're like backstage. Trust me, you see it in 4K quality. It's been described to me, this document, as a holy grail for the union. And so why did they not want this out there? A couple of reasons, but I think the best summary to dumb it down for everybody, because there's a lot here, is that the NFL Players Association has been the product of a regime change after DeMaurice Smith, their executive director, in which J.C. Tretter, former Browns center, became the NFLPA president, 2-term president. But this same month of March 2022, by the way, he got cut from the Browns. Simultaneously, D. Smith, that same month, March 2022, says, okay, I guess I'm on the way out. J.C. Tretter decides, I'm going to run this search in a very confidential, secret way. It's going to result in this new guy, Lloyd Howell, the new executive director of the union, which is all to say that when it comes to why the union didn't act, you look to J.C. Tretter, you look to Lloyd Howell. There's a lot there in those two guys that's in this story, in this episode, but they did not want this released in part because J.C. Tretter, in the document, is referenced privately trashing Russell Wilson, blaming him, Russell Wilson, for not getting the fully guaranteed contract that everybody wanted him to get. To your point, of course you want the full guarantees. J.C. Tretter, president of the union, is privately insulting Russell Wilson, saying that he is the reason why we're never going to get the full guarantees again, effectively. And so if you're the president of the union who wants to be the next executive director of the union to replace the guy you handpicked to replace D. Smith, this is something that looks terrible, I have been told. And so, again, cover up, you could argue, as much as these infractions, these, I won't say crimes for legal reasons, but as much as these missteps and embarrassing things are bad, the cover up, Dan, that's always worse, right? And the question of why didn't you hear, it's about self-interest from individuals instead of the collective good of the players and the union, which is why this is such an insanely interesting story to me.
Before I let you go, any updates on Bill Belichick and his girlfriend?
I was hoping you would ask. Yeah, I continue to report that too. It's funny. I don't have anything to break with you exclusively other than to say that I got some stuff cooking. As much as people think that I've become a real journalist because of this NFLPA story, nope, I'm still in the mud. Dan, I look forward to calling you from the mud, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Will he coach opening week at North Carolina?
I believe he will.
Okay.
I would set the line, number of seasons at North Carolina.
1.5? 1. Oh, 1.
I would say 1.
Oh,
I would say
he's one and done.
I think he's one and done.
Okay.
Personally.
Okay. Okay.
Oh boy.
I'll wait for the mud. Thank you, Pablo.
I don't sling it. I just wade through it, to be clear. I'm not a mud slinger. I'm just a mud. I'm like a catfish.
Okay.
All
right. Pablo Torre. Pablo Torre Finds Out. You can find that podcast. It's Meadowlark Media.